What if I told you that you could buy a house that cost $100,000 more than what your bank pre-approved you for without getting a raise at work? In 2026, the ADU hack is how savvy buyers are buying bigger homes by counting the income from tenants they haven't even met yet. Today, I'm going to go ahead and break down the exact rules for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and FHA in regards to counting ADU income. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So, first and foremost, Fannie Mae is kind of the stick in the mud. Fannie Mae is really not counting much. They only will count ADU income. So ADU is an accessory dwelling unit, right? So when you have a house that has a mother-in-law apartment, that's considered an ADU. Mother-in-law apartments is the industry nickname for a unit inside the house that could be rented out. And we're talking about a separate unit. I'm going to go through the exact rules on what qualifies for that. And I'm going to share some client stories who have been doing this as we go through this. But first, Fannie Mae, they're the ones, like I said, a stick in the mud. They're not really counting this yet. If you're qualifying for the Home Ready program, which is their affordable housing program, meaning that your income has to be at 80% of the area median income, which in Salt Lake County is around 96,000, Utah County is around 92,000, and most of the rest of the counties are lower than that. In those cases, that's the income that you can make and still qualify. And so if you qualify for that, Fannie Mae is actually still going to follow all these same rules I'm going to talk about in a minute. But if not, then you just have FHA and Freddie Mac. And it's important to recognize that Freddie Mac does owner occupied and non-owner occupied. They also do multiple units. FHA, they will only allow owner occupied. It is a primary residence of mortgage. So I'm going to go ahead and share a couple of the details. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen actually. All right. So here's the rules. So in order for it to count as an ADU, it needs to have its own independent access. So it says here outside access. It's not necessarily required. So an example, a Rambler who has a walkout basement, obviously that's going to work out just fine, but it also needs to have the basement needs to have a door, potentially with a lock on it between the two units in order for that to count. I've also seen it if you're looking again at a Rambler and there's a front door, but the front door doesn't have any stairs anywhere near it. But then you have a garage and you go into the set in the garage, there's a garage door entrance. And right from there, there's a set of stairs that goes down into the basement. I've seen that be basically closed off and two doors to be created so that you could go down into the basement directly without interfering with anything upstairs. And when it's set up like that, that's also going to be considered its own independent entrance. Okay. Next thing, it needs to be self-sustaining, meaning that it needs to have its own kitchen and its own bathroom. I get asked all the time about laundry rooms. They are not required. Remember, a lot of people have to go to laundromats. But obviously, if you're looking for resale value and this is your house and you're trying to create value, then laundry rooms are going to be a plus. But that's about it, just a kitchen and a bathroom. So, and I guess obviously a bedroom, right? Somewhere that they can sleep as well. So physical separation there, like I mentioned, there must be a wall or a locking door between the main home and the ADU or accessory dwelling unit or mother-in-law apartment. And then last, it needs to be subordinate in size. It cannot be larger than the main part of the house. Now, Ramblers are frequently kind of equal and they're just fine. And there's actually a rule that you're supposed to live in the larger unit, but with Ramblers, I've had clients that have moved into the basement and rented the upstairs because it was nicer and easier to rent, so they'd make a little bit more money. I've had them live upstairs and rent the downstairs, and so it really is just going to be up to you and what you want to do. Okay, let's talk about the math just a little bit. So that's what's required. That's what an ADU is. Now let's take a look at the math. So how do we count the income? How can you count income from a tenant you haven't even met yet? So let's go ahead and take a quick peek at that. So in my industry, we use the 75% rule. That's the main way that we calculate rental income. So many situations we don't have a history of receiving rent, and so we just use the 75% rule. 1007 is the name of a rent schedule or the classification of a rent schedule in an appraisal. And so the rent schedule is that. It's an analysis of what does this unit likely, it's an appraiser is going to do an analysis on this unit, this mother-in-law apartment, and see what is likely to rent. Like, what are other units comparable in shape and size and location? What are they going to rent? And so we don't just go online and look at whatever things we're actually going to pay for an appraiser to do that. That is very much what they're qualified to do. So if the rent schedule says 2,000 bucks a month, then we are going to count 75% of that, which is 1,500. And that is going to count as income for you. So this is where you can purchase a bigger home than you would normally be able to qualify for, because we're literally going to create count extra income, even if it's vacant. So keep that in mind. We'll give you the loan, but you need to get in there. Now, all of my clients, not necessarily a service that I charge for, but because I personally have 7 doors still. I've had as many as 14. I've been renting and being a landlord for 9 years. I will help you in any way that you need, including sharing my template of leases with you and walking through things. And then while I'm on this, I'll just simply mention my favorite advice I ever got when I was a brand new landlord was to have 3 or 4 or 5 of your favorite friends that are also landlords that you can reach out to. Get yourself a little network. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Landlords do not skimp on information. They are not greedy with their information. They absolutely love sharing their information. So keep that in mind. Get a few landlord friends around you and ask the questions as you're going through it and as you're doing everything for the first time. Okay, next one, 30% cap. So that 1,500 bucks or whatever we count must be no more than 30% of your total qualifying income. If it is, it ain't going to work. It's going to be too big. So we only count 30% of that rent. So that's important to recognize. So here's an example. If you make 7,000 bucks a month, which is kind of like minimum income in the state of Utah to be able to buy a house, it seems like. But we can add up to $3,000 in ADU income, and that's the 75% of it, right? So it's literally going to be 4,000. So if you're buying a place that has 4,000 potential rent coming in, I doubt you're going to be able to qualify for that with a $7,000 income, but we can add it so that in that case you'd have a $10,000 income. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's see, anything else on that? I think that's about it. So let's go ahead and stop sharing this and get back to the main. Wait, stop share. Red button, guys. I'll learn how to work this stuff out one of these days. So that's about it. I just want to go through and make sure I'm remembering everything that I wanted to share about this. And I think so. Oh, I was going to share a couple of real life stories and experiences from clients that have actually done this. So, most of the homes I've seen doing this, they're really starting around 600,000. We have some clients in Riverton that did this right on one of the busy roads. Their home price was about exactly 600,000. Their monthly payment was, I think, 4,000 a month. It might have been 42. And they were going to be able to rent out their basement. And theirs was a multi-level home, not a rambler. You don't see that too often, but the multi-level home was done by an investor. They had finished out the basement, created a walkout basement, had all the separate utilities and everything basically done. So they were able to rent out their basement for about 1,500. And so their total monthly payment out of pocket basically became what, 2,700 somewhere in there, assuming they're collecting rent every single month. So that was a cool story. Another experience, somebody in Orem, they bought their first house. Both of these guys, it was their first house. In Orem, they bought a Rambler, and they're the ones that I mentioned earlier who they moved into the basement and they rented out the upstairs. And theirs was also 600,000. I think they might have been just a tad over, like 625. And their monthly payment, I think, was also around 4,200. But they ended up renting out the base or the upstairs for 2,200 a month. And so for them, they're barely paying over 2,000. Now, any months where they don't have somebody living there, of course, that's a different story. But where it's an upstairs, it's pretty easy to rent out. And they just share the yard and other things like that. Now, this is a young family, and so as they grow and as their kids grow up and stuff, they will slowly but surely take over the whole property. But that allows them to grow into the big $4,000 payment instead of having to do it right out of the gate. Incidentally, that particular buyer did not qualify for that much, even with counting the rent. And so he actually had a parent co-sign with him, and that parent co-signing had extra buying power that enabled him to buy the bigger house. And now he's able to count the rent. The rest is history of that, as far as that goes. So yeah, that's basically it, guys. Man, use ADU to break through to new levels. And keep your mind open to using ADUs to help offset the monthly payments. Because again, These guys were all buying houses that are much bigger than the average first-time home buyer. A $600,000 house, I don't have to tell you, is in a nicer neighborhood usually, yeah, and probably a little bit better long-term plan for them, yeah. And on the flip side, if they bought a $400,000 house, which is still going to be like a $2,800 payment, that $400,000 house is probably not going to fit their family super long time. They probably have an HOA that they need to contest with, excuse me, work with. HOAs can be so fun. So yeah, it's just it kind of opens up a whole new level of opportunities. So shoot me some questions if you got them. Put the comments in the chat or message me, direct message, whatever works. And otherwise, you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in.